My name was David Morrison. For 25 years, I served as a federal judge in Chicago, building a reputation for unwavering integrity. Never did I imagine that my own wife, Catherine, the woman I swore to love and protect, would be the criminal mastermind behind the largest environmental conspiracy I ever investigated. Not only did she poison hundreds of innocent families in Riverside Heights for years, she also ordered my execution when I uncovered the truth. But Catherine made a fatal mistake. She underestimated my determination to bring justice even beyond death. This is the story of how I managed to expose the real killer of hundreds of people, even after she had me murdered. I always believed justice wasn't just my profession, it was my calling. I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, the son of a Ford factory worker and a nurse. My parents, Nicholas and Eleanor Morrison, taught me from a young age that doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. David, my mother used to say as she tended to the scrapes I brought home from school for defending smaller kids from bullies, a man is defined not by what he earns, but by what he stands for. Those words echoed throughout my entire career. I graduated from Northwestern University School of Law with honors, but it was during my first internship at the district attorney's office that I discovered my true passion: protecting the most vulnerable from those who abuse their power. I met Catherine Williams in 1995 during a corporate law conference in Washington. She was a brilliant young corporate attorney, a Harvard graduate with a smile that could light up any room. Our conversation that night lasted until dawn. We talked about justice, about how the legal system could better protect everyday people from the powerful. "You've got fire in your eyes when you talk about justice," she said, touching my hand. "It's rare to meet someone who still believes they can change the world." We got married a year later in a small ceremony in Chicago. Catherine left corporate law and opened her own consulting firm, Morrison and Associates. "I want to build something that's ours," she explained, "show us, something that allows us to make a difference together." During the early years of our marriage, Catherine was my greatest supporter. When I took on tough cases, the kind other judges avoided due to political or economic pressure, she was always by my side. Her companies quickly flourished, expanding from consulting into investments and eventually into various industrial sectors. "I'm proud of you," she'd say after every major legal victory. "You're changing lives." In 2015, I was appointed as a federal judge. At 45, I was one of the youngest in Illinois history to receive such an honor. Catherine threw a surprise party at our home in Lincoln Park. All our friends were there. Marcus Webb, my college roommate, turned federal prosecutor. Thomas Kelly, my clerk and confidant for over a decade. Colleagues from the courthouse. "To this man," Catherine raised her champagne glass, "who never forgets that behind every case file is a human life deserving of justice." Applause filled our living room. I looked at my wife, stunning in her navy blue dress, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. I had a career I loved, a beautiful home, and a woman who shared my values. How wrong I was. During my years as a federal judge, Catherine kept expanding her businesses. Her companies grew exponentially, acquiring stakes in dozens of firms through a complex network of subsidiaries and partnerships. She had offices in Chicago, New York, and even in Washington, D.C. "Business is going well," she'd explain whenever I asked about the frequent trips. "We're diversifying the portfolio, investing in manufacturing, technology, even a few chemical industries." I admired her ambition and business acumen. Catherine had turned a small consulting firm into an investment empire. Our work-related conversations always inspired me. She understood the complexities of the corporate world in a way that I, immersed in the judiciary, never could. "Business is like a chessboard," she'd explain during our dinners. "Every move affects the rest. The key is always thinking 3 moves ahead." That insight would prove prophetic in a way I never could have imagined.
In 2023, troubling cases began reaching my courtroom involving the industrial district of Riverside Heights. on the southern outskirts of Chicago. Entire families were falling ill with rare cancers, severe respiratory diseases, and neurological problems. The statistics were alarming. The cancer rate in the area was 400% higher than the national average. "This isn't a coincidence," Marcus Webb told me during our monthly lunch at the Palmer House. "Something systematic is going on down there." Marcus was a meticulous and relentless federal prosecutor. If he was concerned, there's real reason to be alarmed. Together, we began a quiet investigation. Riverside Heights housed several chemical factories and industrial processing plants. Many had been operating for decades, some since the 1980s. "All the environmental permits are in order," Thomas Kelly informed me after reviewing the initial documents, "at least on paper. But once we started digging deeper, we found inconsistencies. Permits renewed without proper inspections, environmental reports with suspicious data, approval patterns that didn't follow standard protocols." Catherine followed my investigation with genuine interest. "Those poor families," she would sigh when I told her about the children born with disabilities, about the elderly dying prematurely. "You have to find out who's behind this, David. These people are counting on you." Her words motivated me even more. Over the following months, I dedicated myself entirely to the case. I worked late into the night, reviewing documents, interviewing victims, connecting the dots. Catherine always had fresh coffee waiting when I came home in the early hours. "Find anything new today?" she would ask, massaging my tense shoulders. I shared everything with her. After all, she was my wife, my confidant. I talked about the leads we were following, the companies we suspected, and our growing belief that there was a criminal mind coordinating the whole thing. Catherine always offered valuable insights. "Maybe you should investigate the financial connections," she suggested. "In the corporate world, always follow the money." Her advice was consistently helpful. She understood how complex corporate schemes worked, how someone could use shell companies to conceal illegal activity. The first major breakthrough came in September 2021. Marcus and I had spent weeks analyzing the approval patterns of environmental permits when Thomas Kelly brought in a devastating piece of information. "Judge Morrison," he said, walking into my chambers with a grave expression, "I found something you need to see." Thomas had discovered that all the factories in Riverside Heights had one thing in common. All their environmental permits had been processed through the same consulting firm, Green Solutions, LLC. Officially, Green Solutions was a small, reputable company. But when we dug deeper, we discovered it was nothing but a front. "Green Solutions doesn't have any real employees," Marcus explained during our secret meeting in his office. "It's just a mailing address and an accountant. But look at this. They've processed permits for over 40 companies in the past 5 years, all eventually linked to environmental violations." The pattern was clear. Someone was using Green Solutions to facilitate fraudulent approvals. Permits were being approved without proper inspections, using falsified data, and always by specific EPA employees who were then mysteriously promoted or transferred to favorable positions. "We're dealing with systemic corruption," I concluded. "Someone has contacts inside the EPA, is paying bribes, and is coordinating this on a large scale." Catherine was fascinated when I shared our discovery that night. "What a diabolical mind," she said, serving dinner. "Using an environmental consulting firm as a front for environmental crimes. It's almost poetic in its irony." "It's more than that," I replied, picking up my fork. "Whoever's behind this isn't just greedy. They don't care about killing innocent people for profit." Catherine made a disgusted face. "What kind of person would do that? Poison children for money?" "A soulless one, but we'll catch them. Him or her. We'll find out who's behind this and make sure they pay for every life lost." Catherine smiled and took my hand. "I know you will, darling. You always deliver justice." Our investigation intensified. Marcus obtained warrants to examine Green Solutions' financial records. What we found was even shocking. The company had received over $15 million in the past 3 years, from companies that seemingly didn't exist. Shell corporations, Thomas explained, spreading documents across the table in my office. All registered in tax havens, all with fake addresses. Someone's built an entire network of fake companies to launder money. The most disturbing part was how sophisticated the operation was. We weren't dealing with amateurs. This was a corporate-level operation with specialized accountants, corrupt attorneys, and deep political connections. Whoever's behind this has serious resources and access to insider information. Look how they're always one step ahead of us. It was true. Every time we got close to a critical lead, we discovered that documents had been accidentally destroyed, or that key witnesses had suddenly changed their statements. Someone was monitoring our investigation. "I think we have a leak," I confessed to Catherine one night in October. "Someone is tipping off the suspects about our next moves." Catherine frowned. "That's serious, David. If there's a leak, you're in danger. Maybe you should be more careful about who you're sharing information with." "We've thought about that," I replied. "Marcus and I decided to keep the next developments between just the three of us. Me, him, and Thomas. No one else can know." Catherine nodded. "That's wise. But keep me updated about your safety, please. I'm worried about you." Her concerns seemed genuine, and I felt grateful to have a wife who cared so much about my well-being. What I didn't realize was that Catherine wasn't worried about my safety. She was worried about how close I was getting to the truth.
In November, we made our most significant discovery. Marcus had traced the Shell company's money back to their source. All of it led to a master holding company called Riverside Holdings, LLC, registered in the Cayman Islands. Riverside Holdings is the core, Marcus explained during our meeting in the courthouse basement, far from curious ears. Every other company is a subsidiary or partner. If we can find out who owns Riverside Holdings, we'll find our criminal. But identifying the true owner of Riverside Holdings proved extremely difficult. The Cayman Islands have strict banking secrecy laws, and the holding was protected by multiple layers of shell corporations and trust funds. "We'll need international cooperation," Marcus said, "and that could take months." But I was growing impatient. People were dying while we were talking. Children were being born with irreversible defects. Entire families were being destroyed by cancers caused by corporate greed. "There has to be another way," I insisted. "There has to be a local connection here in Chicago. No one runs a conspiracy of this scale from afar." Thomas had a brilliant idea. What if we look at investment patterns? Who in Chicago suddenly became financially successful in the last 5 years? Who's been making major investments in the chemical industry? It was a smart approach. We started quietly investigating local business people who had thrived during the same period the conspiracy was operating. The list was long. Chicago has always been a city of ambitious entrepreneurs. But when we cross-referenced that list with people who had knowledge of our legal processes, people who knew details about our investigation, the list shrank drastically, alarmingly so. "David," Marcus said during our lunch in December, his voice low and concerned, "I have to ask you something difficult. Who else have you been sharing information with about this investigation?" "Only you, Thomas, and—" I stopped mid-sentence, a cold chill running down my spine. "And Catherine," Marcus finished. "Your wife knows everything we've uncovered." "Catherine's not involved in this," I protested immediately. "She's my wife. She supports me." "I know," Marcus said carefully, "but think about it, David. Someone with full access to our findings is feeding information to the criminals. Someone who knows exactly what we're investigating before we even act on it." The suggestion was absurd. Catherine had been my wife for 30 years. She had built an honest business empire. She supported me, encouraged me, shared my passion for justice. But that night, for the first time, I looked at Catherine with new eyes. I noticed how she asked specific questions about the investigation, how she always knew exactly what to inquire about, how her suggestions were always helpful, maybe too helpful. "How was work today?" she asked, as she always did. "Fine," I replied vaguely, testing. "We're following some new leads." "What kind of leads?" she asked, pouring the wine. Normally, I would have told her everything, but this time I hesitated. "Just some financial connections, nothing specific yet." I saw a flash of frustration in her eyes before she smiled. "Well, I'm sure you'll get to the truth soon enough." Over the next few weeks, I began subtly testing Catherine. I shared false information about our investigation to see if it would reach the criminals. I invented fake leads, false timelines, non-existent witnesses. Every false detail I gave Catherine eventually led to preemptive actions by the criminals. When I mentioned a fictitious key witness, that non-existent person suddenly moved to another city. When I said we were looking into a specific company, one not on our actual list, that company quickly destroyed its files. The evidence was undeniable. Catherine was feeding our intel to the criminals. My own wife was the traitor sabotaging our investigation. But the betrayal was even worse than I imagined. In January 2022, we finally gained access to Riverside Holdings records. With the help of Marcus's international contacts, we discovered the final beneficiary listed in the deepest layers of documents. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Catherine A. Morrison. My wife wasn't just informing the criminals. She was the criminal mastermind behind it all. Every factory in Riverside Heights, every shell company, the entire web of corruption, it all belonged to Kathleen. My wife of 30 years had poisoned hundreds of people for profit, and I had spent months unknowingly helping her stay one step ahead of the law. The woman who slept beside me every night was a mass murderer. The moment of truth came on a cold Tuesday in January. I had just received the final documents proving that Catherine was the owner of Riverside Holdings. My mind was reeling, trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal. The woman I loved, who shared my bed, who pretended to care about the victims of Riverside Heights, was the one responsible for all those deaths. But I needed more evidence before taking action. Evidence that would hold up in court. Evidence that would guarantee a conviction. Catherine was smart, very smart. If I confronted her too soon, she could destroy evidence or flee. In the following days, I acted as normal at home, while secretly gathering additional proof. Marcus and Thomas helped me build an airtight case. We traced every financial connection, identified every shell company, documented every bribe payment. "We've got enough to put her away for decades," Marcus said during our final secret meeting in the courthouse basement. Mass murder, corruption, money laundering, federal environmental violations. And marital fraud, I added bitterly. She used me as a shield for years. Who would ever suspect the wife of Honorable Judge David Morrison? Thomas shook his head. "She's diabolical, Judge. Building a reputation of integrity through you while secretly running this criminal empire. It's both brilliant and terrifying." We decided I needed to be isolated from Catherine before the arrests. We couldn't risk her discovering that we knew the truth. The plan was simple. On Friday, I would leave Heim as usual for court, but instead go straight to a safe location. Marcus would coordinate Catherine's arrest and the shutdown of all her operations simultaneously. But Catherine was smarter than we thought. On Thursday night, she was unusually affectionate. She made my favorite dinner, opened an expensive bottle of wine she'd been saving for a special occasion, and talked about planning a second honeymoon in Europe. "You've been working so hard on this case," she said, caressing my face. "When it's over, we should take a long vacation, just the two of us, far away from all this stress." Her words gave me chills. She was planning something. "The case is almost closed," I replied carefully. "A few more days and we'll have the criminal." "Oh?" she asked, her eyes gleaming.
Have you figured out who's behind it all? Yes, I lied. It's someone we know, someone we trusted. The revelation will be shocking. I saw Catherine stiffen just slightly. She knew I knew. That night, I pretended to sleep while watching Catherine through half-closed eyes. She stayed up for hours, texting and whispering phone calls. She was clearly coordinating something. On Friday morning, I got up early and prepared to leave for court, as usual. Catherine got up too, which was unusual. She normally slept in later. "Have a good day, darling," she said, kissing my cheek. "I hope today's the day you catch the culprit." "It will be," I replied, looking her in the eyes. "Justice will finally be served." I left the house at 7:30, just like always. But instead of following my normal route to the courthouse, I took a different path. My plan was to meet Marcus at a secure location and finalize the details of the operation. I never made it. I was driving down Roosevelt Road, just a few blocks from the courthouse, when a freight truck sped out of a side street. There was no time to brake, no time to swerve. The impact was devastating. In my final moments of consciousness, pinned between the twisted metal of my car, I saw the truck driver climb out of the vehicle. It was a man I recognized, one of the goons Catherine used for security at some of her commercial properties. My own wife had ordered my execution.
I died at Northwestern Memorial Hospital 2 hours later with Marcus and Thomas by my side. But before I passed, I managed to whisper a few crucial words to Thomas. The flash drive in the office safe, password Eleanor Nicholas 1969, open only if I die during the investigation. Number 312555, dead. Thomas promised he understood, and I closed my eyes for the last time. Catherine played the part of the devastated widow perfectly. She cried at my funeral, gave emotional interviews about how my accidental death was a terrible tragedy, and even set up a foundation in my name to continue my work in social justice. The Riverside Heights investigation was quietly shelved due to lack of evidence. The case was handed to a different judge who mysteriously ruled there wasn't enough basis to proceed. The factories kept running, people kept dying, and Catherine kept profiting. 2 years passed. Catherine moved on from her grief and began publicly dating a Washington lobbyist named Richard Hayes. They were seen together at social events, charity dinners, even in a few society magazines. Catherine had reinvented herself as a brave widow who had found love again. But I wasn't really dead. Not completely. Because I had left Catherine a surprise. The flash drive I mentioned to Thomas contained more than just evidence of her guilt. It included a video I had secretly recorded after discovering the truth about her, but before she could kill me. In the video, I explained everything. How I found out Catherine was the mastermind behind the Riverside Heights conspiracy, how she had used me for years to shield her operations, how she planned to eliminate me once she realized I knew the truth. But most importantly, the video contains specific instructions for Thomas. If anything happened to me during the investigation, he was to wait exactly 2 years and then deliver the flash drive to the FBI, not before. I wanted to give Catherine enough time to feel safe, to let her guard down, to start living her new life built on my death. "If you're watching this," I said in the video, "it means Catherine likely killed me, but she made one fatal mistake. She underestimated my determination to deliver justice, even beyond death." The flash drive also contained another crucial element: instructions to call the number 312-555 dead. That number would activate an automated system I had programmed with the help of a tech specialist I knew through the courts. When someone called that number, they'd hear my own recorded voice giving specific clues on where to find additional evidence that Catherine didn't know existed. Evidence I had hidden in secure locations throughout Chicago, documenting every aspect of her criminal operation. The automated system would also simultaneously send emails to investigative journalists, federal prosecutors, and FBI agents in multiple states, ensuring that the story would spread far and fast enough for Catherine to be unable to suppress it. My posthumous revenge was about to begin. On January 15, 2024, exactly 2 years after my death, Thomas Kelly walked into the FBI office in Chicago carrying a sealed envelope. His hands trembled slightly. He knew he was about to unleash a storm that would change many lives forever. "I need to speak with the agents in charge of federal environmental crimes," Thomas told the receptionist. "This is evidence related to a murder case." Special Agent Jennifer Martinez accepted the envelope with initial skepticism. Old cases delivered by anonymous sources rarely led to anything meaningful. But when she opened the flash drive and saw my face on the screen, calmly speaking about conspiracy, murder, and corruption, her expression changed completely. "My name is David Morrison," my voice echoed through the FBI office. "If you're watching this, it's because I was killed by the person I trusted most in the world, my wife, Catherine. But before I died, I managed to gather enough evidence to convict her and expose her entire criminal operation. The instructions that follow will lead you directly to the truth." The video lasted 47 minutes. In it, I methodically explained how Catherine had built her criminal empire, how she used my position to shield her operations, and how she ordered my death once I uncovered the truth. I provided names, dates, bank account numbers, and exact locations of hidden physical evidence. The number I left, 312-555-DEAD, will activate an automated system that reveals the location of additional documents. It will also send alerts to the media and other law enforcement agencies, ensuring this investigation can't be buried like it was the first time. Agent Martinez immediately called the number. My recorded voice responded with specific instructions. "Check security deposit box number 1247 at the First National Bank of Chicago. The key is hidden behind the portrait of Abraham Lincoln in my former office at the courthouse. Investigate offshore bank accounts opened in the last 3 years under the following companies." The list included over 30 shell companies Catherine had created to launder money from the Riverside Heights operation. The automated system also provided passwords to digital bank accounts, locations of physical evidence across Chicago, and names of witnesses Catherine believed she had permanently silenced. Simultaneously, my system sent emails to reporters from the Chicago Tribune, Washington Post, 60 Minutes, and national news outlets. Within hours, the story was spreading across the country. Murdered federal judge exposes massive environmental conspiracy in posthumous revenge. Catherine was in her Lincoln Park office when federal agents arrived with arrest warrants. She had just wrapped up a meeting with investors about expanding operations into Ohio when she saw the FBI vans surrounding the building. "Catherine Morrison, you are arrested for multiple violations of federal law, including murder, conspiracy, money laundering, and massive environmental crimes." According to witnesses, Catherine maintained her composure during the arrest. "There must be some mistake," she said calmly. "I'm a respected businesswoman and the widow of a federal judge." "Your late husband disagrees," Martinez replied, showing her a photo from my video. "He left a very detailed statement about your activities." It was only then that Catherine lost her composure. Her face went pale as she realized I had managed to expose her, even from beyond the grave. The man she had ordered killed had found a way to destroy her criminal empire from the afterlife. The subsequent investigation revealed the full extent of Catherine's operations. For over a decade, she had systematically poisoned entire communities through her illegal chemical plants. The profits, estimated at over $200 million, were all seized by the federal government. More importantly, the factories were immediately shut down and their operations transferred to companies that complied with proper environmental regulations. Families in Riverside Heights finally began seeing improvements in their health, and a compensation fund was established using Catherine's seized assets. Marcus Webb, now chief prosecutor, personally oversaw Catherine's trial. "David Morrison may be gone," he said during his closing statement to the jury, "but his commitment to justice transcended even death.
He ensured the truth would come out, no matter the personal cost. Catherine was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She showed no remorse throughout the trial, maintaining her innocence to the very end, but the evidence I left behind was irrefutable. Thomas Kelly established the David Morrison Foundation for Environmental Justice, using part of the reward he received for delivering the evidence. The foundation works to protect vulnerable communities from corporate environmental crimes. Judge Morrison proved that true justice cannot be silenced, Thomas said during the foundation's inauguration ceremony. Even when the powerful try to eliminate those who fight for the weak, the truth finds a way to rise. Today, Riverside Heights is healing. Cancer rates are declining, children are being born healthy, and families once again have hope. A plaque now stands in the heart of the community, in memory of Judge David Morrison, who gave his life to protect the innocent. As for me, I can finally rest in peace. I achieved justice even after death. I proved that not even death can stop a man determined to protect the most vulnerable from those who abuse power. Catherine thought she could silence me forever by killing me, but she underestimated one fundamental truth. A truly honorable man finds a way to do the right thing no matter the circumstances. Justice prevailed, and sometimes that's all that matters.